The seeds of my passion for the environment were planted 6 years ago in my permaculture club at high school in Turkey. During our visits to agricultural farms around Turkey, I started to notice the drastic impacts of changing temperatures on the health of crops. I thought about what this meant for my generation's future. Though I loved the permaculture work, I had a hard time imagining that our localized efforts in these organic farms could ever move the needle on a challenge as big as the climate crisis. So, I decided to organize the first youth climate strike in Turkey. I worked with a local NGO to advertise an open call for students in Istanbul who wanted to join me in challenging the climate apathy. We rented out a local venue with a capacity of 100 people for our first meeting. Almost 400 students showed up that day. We utilized the power of social media to connect with the international branches of the youth climate movement and to draw the politicians' attention to the climate crisis. After months of organizing, thousands of people of all ages were roaming the streets of Istanbul in unison during our September 2019 climate strike. The movement I helped start expanded to 30 cities around Turkey in a few months, showing me the power of grassroots organizing and the youth's desire for real action. I met with the local politicians as well as the members of the parliament to demand the ratification of the Paris Climate Agreement. And finally, in 2021, the Turkish government officially ratified the agreement. This experience taught me so much about building a community around the cause, as well as the importance of effective communication and dialogue. I got to listen to and understand the concerns of climate activists about market-based approaches to climate change. These young activists demanded a more fundamental change, one that would disrupt the current growth-based economy to create a circular one. The rationale was that we can't solve the problem by using the same tools we used while creating it. This is also the reason why there is a lot of skepticism towards carbon capture and sequestration among youth climate activists. I used to be one of these skeptics. However, studying the science, politics, and economics of climate change at Yale University shifted my approach and mindset. I started to see and appreciate the complexities of climate mitigation and got fascinated by this complexity. I still think that a healthy level of skepticism toward silver bullet technical fixes is justified. It is useful to keep this critical lens while implementing large-scale carbon management solutions. After all, injecting carbon underground only to extract more oil through enhanced oil recovery is not a sustainable option. Point source carbon capture from fossil fuel plants can't be the ultimate cure to the climate crisis, just as CDR can't be used as insurance while we keep burning more fossil fuels. We need to understand that climate activists and frontline communities are raising important points when they criticize certain CCS projects for continuing the social license of big oil. However, what I see missing in this black and white narrative are the good actors in the carbon dioxide removal space. Innovations that are actually propelling us forward and complementing the green energy transition. These nature-first solutions are enhancing the natural capacity of forests, oceans, and rocks to draw down carbon from the atmosphere and permanently store it for decades. I like that these are tangible, real projects as opposed to the endless blah, blah, blah of policy commitments. I eventually came to realize that CCS and CDR are merely tools. They're not inherently good or bad. Just as the internet and artificial intelligence are only tools, their success depends on who's using them and how. I realized there are ways of implementing CDR solutions responsibly when community engagement and environmental justice become not peripheral considerations, but rather the central pieces of the climate puzzle. I saw that there are many organizations around the world that are implementing novel CDR solutions in a socially responsible way. Today, the audience is full of these good actors, working every day to design responsible carbon management projects. I still remember my initial fascination when I started doing research on the Carbfix technology during my study abroad here in Reykjavík. Who knew that a pipe in the ground could be a beacon of hope for the fight against climate change? I was so excited about this idea that I decided to write my graduation thesis on the feasibility of using saline water for the Carbfix method so that it can be deployed in water-scarce regions around the world. After engaging with this field for the last 3 years, I understood the importance of bringing these good actors together to rapidly scale these breakthrough technologies. Because it is no longer a choice, but an imperative to scale CDR solutions, as we've heard many times during yesterday's panels and talks. However, a lot of activists are still not convinced and on the fence about these technical solutions to climate change. We need to figure out ways to create a common dialogue between the different approaches to climate mitigation if we want to move fast and reach the gigaton scale needed to scale carbon removal. So that was my motivation behind joining the Carbon Containment Lab, first as a student intern, and now as a full-time research analyst after graduation. I am fascinated and motivated every day by the interdisciplinary thinking required to implement these solutions at scale. For example, we approach in situ carbon mineralization in the Pacific Northwest region of the US with a community-first, science-based approach. Because we understand that getting serious about community engagement and transparent dialogue with indigenous tribes isn't a nice-to-have, but it's actually one of the most important pieces that can make or break a CDR project. I'm glad I get to work with agricultural farms again now, which had sparked my interest in climate work to begin with. Although this time, our goal has a much larger scale than my previous local permaculture work. This time, we're trying to harness the gigaton carbon storage potential of the Columbia River Basalt Group. What really excites me about this work is that we're seeing unexpected alliances form in the region. After years of community outreach and trust building with large-scale farms in Washington and Oregon, these landowners are now one of the greatest supporters of our carbon sequestration work. The kids of these farmers are all passionate about climate action too, and are actually pressing their parents towards sustainable solutions. This matters a lot, especially in an intergenerational business like farming, and should give us hope about how much of a priority climate action is for the upcoming generation. The Carbon Containment Lab intentionally focuses on training the next generation of CDR leaders. We hire more interns than full-time staff every year and give them the mentorship and resources they need to create impactful projects with tangible results. I was happy to find a community here that viewed my experiences in the climate activism space as a valuable asset. Ultimately, climate activists want to see quantifiable greenhouse gas reduction. And CDR technologies offer us a great tool to achieve that, as long as we use it well. So this is my message to everyone in the audience. If you don't want activists protesting outside, then bring us inside. Harness this youthful, renewable energy. Find ways to engage in constructive dialogue to understand the frustrations of the youth with the business as usual. We bring the long-term mindset to the climate conversation because we will be the decision makers in 2050, but we can't wait that long to fix this crisis. Let's work together to create an unexpected alliance between youth climate activists, frontline communities, and the CDR community through honest dialogue and collaboration. Creating a strong synergy between these groups might be our biggest hope to reach net zero, and the time to do so is now. Thank you.